Wingman Joker, thank you for listening to this channel and please support the channel. Please subscribe. Chapter 11. The Results 3. Looking around, Victor could see that the one who screamed was a girl from a branch family. The boy next to her collapsed on her lap with blood rushing out of his mouth. He seemed to be her servant. Maybe there was something more between them. He noticed them before as they were with him on the yacht. This was not the only case, but the others were more composed when they saw the dead bodies of people with whom they have just had a drink. While there were some noises, they did not dare make much ruckus. Only about 60% of the participants survived, and by family standards, this was a very good result, as can be seen from the elders' big smiles. Victor was very surprised to see his cousin Ron has survived when he should have been dead. He did not appear to be in a good mood though. He should only be a semi-player. As for the reason why, who knows, maybe he was too stimulated when Victor was cuddling Lily on his lap earlier, that his bloodline awakened a little. His return has already started to change things. His predictions will not be as accurate in the future, but he long expected such results and did not care. Looking for Guy, he found him dead on the floor. Oh, not bad. Looks like my guess was correct, he thought. He turned to the left and looked at Lily, who was looking at him with a worshipping gaze. Oh, she survived too. Before he could say anything, the elder knocked on the floor with his cane, making the hall go silent once more. Now, I want to congratulate you all for completing the ritual. From now on you are real members of the Von Weiss family. All of you should be able to see your status window on the edge of your vision. Try looking at it and it will come into focus. Only players can interact with it. As for semi-players, they would only be able to observe it. On it you can see your current attributes. I want you to keep all these attributes a secret for now. After the evaluation you would be told what you can reveal. Now, stand up orderly and follow my assistant to the side hall, then wait for your names to be called. He said. The assistant was a fat middle-aged man in white robes. He was standing next to the elder, so he bowed down a little to everyone, then turned around and headed toward the exit, and the participants including Victor had to follow him quickly. While heading outside the hall, Victor looked at his father, who was standing with the other elder. Their eyes met. Theodore smiled and nodded to Victor. He seemed relieved by his son's survival. Victor nodded back, then turned and continued to follow the others. At the same time, many maids entered the hall and started cleaning up the bodies of the unfortunate participants. Ellipsis. Reaching the waiting hall, everyone was surprised. This time there were seats and tables prepared for all the participants, even the servants. Although their social status has not changed, their position in the family is now different, and they would probably be promoted later. Sitting at a table for two, Victor ordered Lily to sit on his lap again, and she could only comply with her young master's unreasonable demands, so she sat with a blush on her face. This was not the first time anyway, and her feelings seemed to be a little different. After everyone was seated, the assistant glanced at Victor before shaking his head and informing the participants to wait for their names to be called. Then he left the hall in a hurry. A few seconds later many maids entered with plates of well-prepared foods and drinks. It is time for them to relax a little and have a late lunch. Their ordeal was over, and what is left is the family's evaluation and rewards. Their next step in life would be decided after that. Now it was unknown who from the participants gained what class or authority. Usually only 10% becomes full players. But that did not stop many participants, and especially the servants, from going around to socialize with and congratulate the higher-ranked members. Cousin Ron already had a long line of admirers waiting to congratulate him. As for poor Victor, who had a bad reputation, to begin with, having a petite girl in his lap did not help his case, so no one came close to him. Looking at Lily on his lap, Victor activated his appraisal skill and looked at her status. Name: Lily. Level: 0. Abnormal status: Slave weak. Class: Shadow Dancer. Authority: 3. Strength: 20. Intelligence: 22. Agility: 36. Luck: 11. Charm: 39. Order: 10. Skills: Shadow Cloak, A. Penetrating Dagger, A. Mesmerizing Dance, A. Area Inspect, S. Quickstep, B. Not bad at all, he thought. A level 3 authority is really amazing for a newbie player. Maybe she had some hidden bloodline or martial arts talent, but he needs some artifact to examine and verify those, as they were not system parameters. Looking at her pretty eyes staring back at him, he thought, this little girl will be a great assassin in the future. Too bad she died too early in his past life. Young master, Lily suddenly said, about what happened. No need to report, Victor interjected while patting her head. When they call me to the evaluation room you will follow me. I have already told you that you are mine no matter what your results are, he said, and be careful not to reveal any information, walls have ears. He warned her not to ask about Guy's death. Yes, young master, Lily bent her head down and answered in a low voice. In fact, she was very curious why looking at Guy for 1 minute resulted in his death. Was it just a coincidence? But Guy looked very assured of his success before the ritual. After a few minutes, one servant entered the room and called politely for Ron to follow him, so he left the room under the gaze of his admirers. Not many noticed, but there was a look of distress in his eyes. He was afraid of his father's rebuttal. For a servant, a semi-player status was a great result, but for someone from the main branch, it was a disgrace. Victor activated his skill and looked at Ron's status while he was leaving the hall. Name: Ronald = Von Weiss. Level: 0. Status: Agitated Bloodline Awakening plus 0.5% per hour 2 hours. Class: X. Authority: 1. Strength: 15. Intelligence: 12. Agility: 13. Luck: 5. Charm: 15. Order: 10. Skills: Tiger's Fist, D. Basic Sword Arts, F. His bloodline really started to awaken, Victor thought with a smile, but his attributes are pretty stranded, like mine in the past. He may have a chance if he completes the bloodline awakening though. Victor opened his mouth, and Lily, who was waiting for his signal, quickly inserted a seedless grape in it. This girl is really smart, he thought. I should lighten her punishment for breaking into the hall. Now he should think about how to present himself to the family. His attributes were pretty stunning, even without considering his authority, because he used the 2,000 points he should have wasted on the authority to buff the rest of his attributes. He closed his eyes as if taking a nap, then activated the disguise skill and began to adjust here and there so that he would present a normal status to the family. A good result would gain him a good position in the family, a shocking result would gain him a lot of enemies. A few minutes later, a servant entered the hall and called Victor's name, then politely asked him to follow. Victor commanded Lily to go with him and left the hall, with her holding his hand, under the scrutinizing gaze of his peers. Chapter 12. The Evaluation. Following the servant, Victor and Lily were led through many corridors till they reached another grand door. 2 armored guards were standing there. One of the guards looked at them and said, "Only the heir Victor Von Weiss was called. Explain yourselves." Before the servant could speak, Victor stepped forward and answered with a clear voice, "Victor, son of Theodore Von Weiss, is here for the evaluation. As per the regulation, I may bring my personal servant who attended the ceremony with me." The guard looked at him, then at Lily, before nodding and stepping aside, opening the door for them to proceed to the next room. Stepping inside the room, Victor could see a huge white jade slate placed in the middle, with the elders surrounding it. His father and uncle were there too. The look on his uncle's eyes was not very good, and he glared at Victor when he stepped inside the room. "You should be grateful," thought Victor, "I saved your son's life." If his uncle knew what he was thinking, he would probably vomit blood in rage. Behind the elders, sitting on the only chair in the room, was a middle-aged man with a heroic figure and only 2 strands of silver in his purplish-black hair. This was Marcos von Weiss, his grandfather and the current patriarch of the family. Victor bowed and cupped his hands when he entered the room, while Lily behind him knelt with her head down as per family protocol. "Victor Von Weiss, greets the patriarch and the elders," he said in a clear voice. Said Marcus, "Both of you stand up," he ordered, then started to inspect both of them with his eyes. "And who might this slave be?" he questioned. Before Victor could reply, Theodore stepped forward. "Esteemed father, this is the slave I just told you about." Victor helped her on a whim and took her as his follower, and it seems her luck was good, as she survived the ritual. He said, "Good, let's start with her then." He looked at Lily and said, "Step forward, identify yourself, then place both of your hands on the inspection jade." Lily, a former apprentice of the assassins, Hall, and currently young master's Victor Von Weiss' servant, she said, then moved forward nervously and placed her little hands on the jade slate. A faint light shone and passed through her. Then on the slate words magically appeared. Level 0, Shadow Dancer. Authority, 3. Strength, 20. Intelligence, 22. Agility, 36. Luck, 11. Charm, 39. Slave, Bloodline. SS rank 100%, not awakened, no record. Victor was surprised. An SS rank bloodline, not bad, I have to train her well, he thought with an evil grin, then looked at astonished elders who began to drool. Now it might be a little tricky to keep her. His grandfather stood up and moved closer to the slate as if he was not believing his eyes. then turned and looked at her and began to inspect her thoroughly, and when he was about to start using his hands. Ahem, Victor cleared his throat. Excuse me, esteemed grandfather, but Lily is already my property, he said, making Marcus look at him angrily and wanting to rebuke him, but he suddenly remembered the family rules. What Victor said is correct, the girl was his and no one can take it from him, not openly anyway. Looking at the girl with little reluctance, he let go and returned to his seat. You may step down, he told her. As for your assignment, it is up to your master since you are already his slave, but the family orders you to keep your bloodline hidden, he said in a cold voice. Theodore looked at Victor and shook his head as if to tell him to give up on her to please the patriarch, but Victor could also see his father's hand, which was hidden from the other's sight, was signaling to him, keep her for yourself. Now, what are you waiting for? Go test yourself, we don't have all day, Marcus rebuked Victor, who could only swallow his breath and move forward to the slate. Putting his hand on it, he could feel the warm current flowing through his hands, then it glowed. Level 0, Supreme Merchant, Authority, 3, Strength, 21, Intelligence, 25, Agility, 20, Luck, 15, Charm, 20, Bloodline, AAA rank 100% not awakened von Weiss. His disguise skill worked. He chose to disguise his true class as a merchant, as he already has the admin merchant passive skill, and this class would allow him the freedom of movement and spare him from forcibly joining deadly missions. A merchant would usually be assigned to a city to oversee his own or family's business. Merchant players have the ability to make transactions across vast spaces with other merchants using a system market, and that makes them theoretically an important logistical asset. But right now this role is not very important, as there are no more than 30 merchants across the world, but after the reckoning, things would be different. Their most important role in purchasing items from the world system. To do that he would need a system virtual currency known as coins. Normal players have no access to this store. To gain coins, 3 ways exist. The first is completing system missions, the second is trading from other players, and the third is selling raw materials to the system, which can also only be done by a merchant. The higher the level of the merchant, the more preferable the prices he would get. The elders didn't know what the Supreme means in the class title, but it can't be bad. Watching Victor complete the examination, the elders, including his father, was excited. Even the face of his angry grandfather relaxed a bit. Having an Authority 3 Supreme Merchant is a great addition to the family. In addition to that, having a 100% purity blood makes Victor a true bloodline holder belonging to a small group in the family who are highly valued and protected, as he might have a big chance of fully awakening his bloodline, and their offspring would have a big chance of having pure blood too. The only downside is that Victor's measured attributes are on the weaker side, and as a merchant, his attributes won't rise much as he levels up. Good, Marcos exclaimed. Victor, your luck was really good, you make me and your father proud. But your rank is higher than anticipated, so I have no assignment ready for you. He pondered for a moment, then continued. Looking at Theodore, he said, Theodore, you have a good son, how about you send him to Vane City? As far as I know, it is under your jurisdiction. Let him start a business there, or let him work part-time in your company while attending the elite academy there, he commanded. Then looked at Victor and Lily. You don't need to keep anything hidden. You may leave, he said. Victor looked at Marcus and wanted to curse at him. How could he not give him any reward? He is probably holding a grudge, or does he have some other plans for Lily? He thought. Knowing that no matter what he said the results would be the same, Victor decided to try to ask someone else for help, so he quickly saluted the elders and then left the room with Lily. Chapter 13. Meeting Grandma. After leaving the room, Victor was led to another hall where he should wait for his father until he finishes his duties before they can head back. Ron and a few other participants were already there, busy socializing. It seemed that Ron hid the fact that he was just a semi-player. Victor did not disturb them, and neither did they care about him. They were too busy sucking up to Ron. Victor sat down, and Lily naturally sat on his lap without him asking her to. Not bad, this girl is a fast learner, he thought. Then he asked one servant for a pen and a piece of paper, which he folded and put in his pocket after writing a few words on it. After a few minutes, an assistant soon came with a letter for Victor from his father, telling him that he would be staying here till the morning and that Victor should leave by himself and wait for him in the private villa down the mountain. Victor naturally knew the place, so he thanked the assistant and quickly headed outside with Lily. The ceremony began in the late afternoon, but it was already dark when they came out. Looking at the bright full moon illuminating the empty mountain road, he couldn't help but look at the sky and laugh loudly. Victor may have appeared composed, but he was very nervous all the time. If anything went wrong inside, he might have ended up as a corpse. Lily looked at him strangely, but she can understand his situation. As a direct heir he was under great pressure and now he seems to have been relieved after fulfilling the expectations of his family, she thought. Congratulations, young master, she said with a big smile. Victor looked at her and smiled, then slapped her on her butt and started walking up the mountain, which made her face turn red in shame. This new young master of her is a bully, so she wanted to change the subject before her young master gets any other strange ideas, but suddenly she noticed a very strange thing. Young master, your esteemed father has ordered us to go down the mountain. May I inquire why are we heading up? She asked. Victor stopped walking then turned around to examine her, then slapped her butt again and continued climbing up. This made Lily's eyes tear up because of the injustice. She didn't do anything wrong, why slap her? Just before Lily, who was wondering if she should ask, opens her mouth, Victor spoke. I am heading up the mountain because of you, he said solemnly. Lily was surprised. Because of me? Why? She asked in wonder, but he answered her with a serious question. Do you want to keep following me or would you prefer to follow my grandfather, the so-called patriarch? I am sure he would welcome you with open arms and will not let you suffer any injustice if I were to give you to him. So me or him, whom do you prefer? Answer truthfully, no need for hesitation nor fear. No matter what answer you choose, I won't get angry. He said while facing forward and kept walking, not letting her see his expression. She pondered for a second then answered firmly. No matter what, I am young master's belonging, and I don't want to be touched by any other, she continued with a faint blush on her face. The moment young master saved me and helped me exact revenge I was already his, she said with her beautiful voice. Victor knew from experience that she did not lie, she was telling the truth, and that made him feel really touched. Young master, according to the rules no matter what the patriarch wants does not matter, it is your choice. Right, she asked with little tears in the corners of her eyes, does the young master wish to get rid of me? The answer she was expecting did not come, but another spank on her butt did, a heavy one this time. She almost let out a shameful voice. Young master, you promised you will not get angry. She exclaimed in shame. I am not angry, he said while continuing his climb up the mountainous road. It is just that this situation is very tricky, and I know that guy will never give up. You mean the patriarch? She exclaimed at the rude way her young master was calling his grandfather. Who else? He said. So she interjected, but the family rules. Ha, the rules have always had exceptions, and there are always back doors, just like how I saved you from a certain death. Earlier today, he said, and that made Lily a little shocked. If it is like that, her situation is really tricky so. Young master, you can give up on me, she said with a downcast tone. No, there is a better method. He firmly answered then stopped and looked her in the eyes. Lily, let me ask you a question. Do you know why most of the world's great leaders have secret mistresses or second wives? Because, they have the power, the wealth, and no one would say no to them, she answered truthfully. Exactly, then why is it that my grandfather, the patriarch of one of the greatest families, he who can replace any president or king with a flick of his finger, only have one wife? He asked with a smirk. Is it family tradition or is he deeply in love with your grandmother? She wanted to ask but then she corrected herself. No, all the elders and purebloods have numerous wives and lovers. So it can't be it, and all of them have favorite wives and that did not stop them from having others, she thought with a soft voice. Then she got an idea but did not find the courage to say it because it was too outrageous. So Victor said it for her. Exactly, he is afraid of his wife, he said, and that made Lily turn around to see if anyone around heard them. Don't worry, I already used my skill so no one can hear us, he said. He has already begun using his disguise skill to hide their voice when they started their trip, as the mountain is crawling with family secret guards. Lily sighed with relief. Young master, don't scare me like that again. Such matters could cause our death. She said as she have already discovered all the hidden eyes around them using her area inspect skill. He laughed. If we want to restrain any schemes of my dear grandfather we have to act before he gets a chance to weave his web, so do you know where are we going? He asked. To meet your esteemed grandmother. She asked while tilting his head. To meet grandma, Victor confirmed with a smile that did not reach his eyes. Chapter 14. Scamming Grandma. The truth was something he wouldn't tell Lily because he couldn't tell her from where he knew about it. It was something he pieced together after scavenging his family's ruins in the past. He has gained knowledge of many secrets back then, some of them are hidden even from the top echelons of his family. They had no idea to what degree their family was penetrated with spies and enemies. If the family was not obliterated back then, it would have changed its name in a couple of years. But now he is back and he will make sure to save his family and make it all his at the same time. When Victor said, his grandfather is afraid of his grandmother, he was not lying, but that was not the full truth. The patriarch was terrified by his wife, would be a more accurate sentence. Looking at the mountainous road and the green trees ahead of him, Victor thought about his namely grandfather Marcos. Very few people know that he does not come from the main family branch, but from a side branch family. It was his grandmother, the last living offspring of the last patriarch, who chose him and made him what he is today. For her to keep the power as a woman, she had to find a suitable male partner to act as a puppet patriarch for her, as females were forbidden from taking the head seat according to the rules. And in fact, Marcus is just one of his grandmother's husbands. And he was the weakest member of her harem. Theodore was not Marcos's son, but the son of one of the other family's masters who followed his grandmother. But no one knew about that, not even Marcos, as his grandmother kept such secrets under tight wraps. To get such information, he had to desecrate the graves and sample the DNA of his entire family. After the family's demise, this entire archipelago became a deserted land where only grave thieves and criminals roam with the beasts. His grandmother Anne von Weiss is a very powerful woman, Victor thought, but he knew that every man or woman has something they desperately want or need, and he has now a method of getting exactly what she wants and getting himself rich in the process. Victor was prepared to expose a few of his secrets to his grandmother in order to gain her trust and support, as Marcos has already started his plan when he ordered Victor to go to school in Vane City. Yes, Marcos is that kind of a guy, he would stop at nothing to get what he wants, thought Victor. After walking for another 15 minutes while holding hands with Lily, he reached the gate of a grand mansion, surrounded by a fancily worked iron fence. Standing there on the door were two female guards, who had a purple hue in their hairs, purebloods. "Stop right there," one of them said. "May I inquire about your identity and the reason you are here?" She asked in a slightly artificial polite tone, "And at this hour?" She continued after a pause as it was already late. Victor took out the folded piece of paper he prepared before leaving the hall and gave it to the guard. "I am the heir Victor von Weiss, and this is my maid Lily. We wish to meet your mistress for a very important reason." The guard hesitated for a mere second before accepting the paper. "Please wait a moment," she said before signaling the other guard to keep watch over them, and heading inside the mansion. After 3 minutes, a sturdy female housekeeper walked out of the mansion with the guard. She looked at Victor and said, "Follow me please." Victor turned to Lily and said, "Wait for me." The housekeeper interrupted him. "The mistress asked for both of you," she said, then turned around and headed inside the fence. Victor and Lily followed after a brief hesitation. **T, I made a big mistake," Victor thought as his face became very bitter. He really overestimated Marcus's courage. It seems he did not want Lily for himself but for his dear wife. The situation can still be salvaged, I hope, he thought. After walking through the lavish mansion's front yard and passing through the front door, they were guided into a lavish room, where Victor took the liberty to sit down on a comfy chair, while Lily stood quietly behind him. Lily still had some dirt and some blood traces on her face and her clothes as she did not have a chance to clean up, while Victor's clothes were not very clean as Lily was forced to sit on his lap a couple of times. After a few minutes a beautiful woman with curly purple hair and a lavish black dress entered the room with two pretty handmaids. She looked about 30 years old, but Victor knew that she was at least 70, there were no aging marks on her face nor body, her blood was fully awakened. She was Victor's grandmother Anne von Weiss. Looking at her enter the room, Victor and Lily quickly saluted in respect. Victor activated his appraisal skill, but after a split second he felt a piercing pain, so he deactivated it quickly, and coughed twice to hide the painful look on his face. It seems he used this skill too much today that it strained his eye, in addition to the fact that Anne's level is much higher than him, but that split second was enough for him to confirm the piece of information he wanted. Anne equals von Weiss. Level, 1599ths downwards double arrow. Abnormal status, poisoned SS mid. Authority, 09, strength, 4. Question mark 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 question mark. Yes, the rumors he heard back then were true, she was poisoned. Anne looked at Victor briefly and examined Lily for a whole 10 minutes before looking back at Victor. "What do you mean by this?" she asked, and then threw a piece of paper to the ground. It was the same piece of paper he gave to the guard earlier. It reads a few words. "I can get a white lotus pill." Looking at it, Victor started talking. "Esteemed grandmother, as grandfather may have already told you, I have awakened a supreme merchant class, and this allows me to have access to a random selection of system wares every month to buy, and it happened that this pill was one of them, and I wanted to inquire if my dear grandmother is interested in it." "And how do you know that I may be interested in it?" she asked. "Ah well, the grandson happens to have attended your birthday this year and the previous one and happened to notice that most of the presents grandma seems to favor had a detoxification effect," he explained. "Oh, and since when are you proficient in drugs identification?" she asked with a smile. "Damn," he thought, "this little one is well read," he answered with a few beads of sweat appearing on his forehead. "Oh," she said. He knew that she did not fully believe him, but that does not matter as she would want to get the pill first before grilling him. "The price?" she asked. 3,000,000 coins, in addition to a promise from you that you would not deliberately hurt me in any way as long as I don't interfere with your business," he said firmly. "Oh, but I already want this girl. Marcos has already sent a letter about her," she said, looking at Lily, who unconscionably flinched. "But that would make me very hurt," he said with a pitiful look, and that made Lily's eyes sparkle with tears. "Her young master is good to her. I know that grandmother wants to use her bloodline to breed a new kind of warriors for the family, right?" he inquired, and his grandmother did not respond, and that made Lily flinch again. "But there is no need, as I intend to take her as a wife so her children would still be parts of the family," he continued, as this was the only solution he can think of to convince his grandma. His grandmother looked back at him with a piercing eye. "As far as I know, you already have a fiancé, and she can't stop you from having a few other wives, but she would not like that," she said with a smirk. "She has already become an adult, so she should learn that you can't always have what you want." "I will deal with it," he said. "That fiancé of his is really troublesome." "Oh, okay, I agree," she said. "She urgently needs that pill. She has been poisoned for too long and her level has already declined to 15, if this goes on any further she might not be able to control the family. The white lotus pill is a very rare medicine that can cure her completely." And just when she wanted to inquire when would Victor get the pill, he flashed a gold parchment in front of her. Created by his contractor of doom skill, and containing their agreement. After signing it, if any party broke it, they will have to face severe consequences. She knew what this was, and that made her surprised, as she always viewed Victor as some kind of a weakling, but today's events proved her wrong again and again. "Seems like he is not useless after all," she thought. "Maybe I should give him a chance to prove himself." "Well, that's for later." She nodded her head. "Okay," she said, "but add a clause that the price you ask must be exactly the system's store price," she added with a smirk. She will not let him get away with any advantages. Victor flinched, then corrected the contract with a flick of his hand. "Fine, that makes it 2,000,000 coins." His grandmother glared at him. This piece of shit was about to scam her for 1,000,000 coins. That is the family's revenue for one entire year. But she didn't scold him, as she was beginning to like this cunning grandson of her. She bit her finger and a purple drop of blood fell onto the contract, and Victor did the same. The contract shimmered with golden light, then disappeared. The contract was done. She waved her hand and a system prompt appeared in Victor's head notifying him that 2,000,000 coins have been added to his account. So he quickly operated his merchant administrator skill and bought one white lotus pill for the listed price of 2,000,000 coins, then applied for a discount using his authority and got a 50% back, 1,000,000 coins. "I am rich now," he thought. After this, he has to wait 2 days to be able to use this skill again, as his level was still too low, and the transaction very big, but it was worth it. He took the pill out of the store window and it appeared in thin air, so he presented it to his grandmother, who grabbed it immediately, and with a wave of her hand, Victor and Lily were thrown out of the house. "I will not see you off, come visit me again when you have time. And be careful about your fiancé." Her parting words echoed in Victor's head, which was planted in the dirt outside of the mansion. He stood up with the help of Lily, who started dusting the dirt off him. He smiled at her, then slapped her on her little butt and said, "Let's go home." This trip was a success. "Yes, young master," Lily answered with a sweet smile. Chapter 15, An Unexpected Reward. Going down the mountain was easy. Victor only had to ask one of the mansion's guards to find a car for him, so a luxurious car was quickly prepared to take them back. Victor quickly explained his destination to the female driver, who nodded her head in understanding and started the engine. Sitting in the back seat of the speeding car, Lily looked out of the window and watched the passing scenery while wondering if all of today's events were just a sweet dream that would end when she woke up. But Victor proved her wrong by suddenly laying down on the back seat and placing his legs against the window with his head on her lap. "Don't move around, I want to have a nap," he said. "Wake me up when the car stops." With that said, he closed his eyes and started snoring. Lily was very embarrassed. Her face turned as red as a tomato, and she did not know where to put her hands. But looking at the driver who faked not knowing what's happening in the back, she took a little breath to stabilize her shaking hands. Then she slowly began to caress Victor's head in her lap. Time flowed quickly, and after half an hour, they reached their destination. When the car stopped, Victor opened his eyes to meet Lily's, who was about to wake him up and caused her to have a blush on her face. "Young master, we have arrived," she said softly. He smiled at her, then quickly got up and out of the car. Facing him was 3 stories modern villa. Even though his father only stayed here a few nights every other month, it was well maintained. When he stepped down from the car, a tall man in a black uniform was waiting for him. It was George, his father's butler. Victor smiled and saluted him. "Uncle George, I did not expect to see you here. It is already late. You should be resting in bed instead of waiting for this youngster," he said with a smile. George was always good to him. Even after being kicked out of the family back then, he still received occasional help from him. "Young Master Victor, this is just my duty, please follow me," George said warmly, then guided them into the house. After stepping inside, George ordered the maids to escort Lily to the bath and arrange a new set of clothes for her, then requested that Victor follow him. Victor gave Lily a wink signaling her to follow the maid, then turned around and followed George into a side corridor leading to a well-lit study. Once inside, George took out a black briefcase. "In here, you will find your new credentials and the documents for some properties and businesses the family granted you. It is your reward," George said as he handed it to Victor. "Oh," exclaimed Victor, "what an unexpected reward. Master requested that after getting this bag, you should get familiar with what's inside as soon as possible, and you will need to catch the plane to Vane City tomorrow at noon. You will act as the new CEO of the Master's branch company," he emphasized. "Is there anything else?" Taking the briefcase and weighing it in his hand, Victor asked. "I have already prepared a room for you and a fresh set of clothes. As for your luggage, it has already been sent to Vane City. If the young master have any further requests, then, the maids and myself are at your service," said George. "Nothing really, just ask Lily to find me in my room after she finished her bath," said Victor, then left the study with the briefcase and ordered a maid to lead him to the room prepared for him. After washing and changing his clothes, Victor sat on a comfy chair in his room with a freshly brewed cup of premium coffee. Opening the briefcase George gave him, he started examining the documents inside. The first documents were a new identification card, a passport, and a school acceptance letter. When heirs leave the family, they would, more often than not, be given a fake identity for their protection. Influential families like his have many enemies. His new name will be Victor White. He will act as the new CEO of Horizons Media, a place he knew well from his previous life. It was also a branch of the mega multimedia production company his father runs. In addition to that, he has to start high school in about 2 months. Next, there were many documents for different properties and estates inside the city, including a grand mansion. After skipping those, he took out a purple ornamented jade token. Looking at the rewards, Victor could only smirk. It seems his family truly values him now. It is probably his grandmother who commanded them to give him these. Because after the ceremony, he noticed that his father and the patriarch were not sure what assignment to give him, so he guessed that they would have had to think about it for a few days at the very least. But now, after only taking the time he spent on the road, about 30 minutes, they decided to give him not only a complete company but also a high rank in the family. This purple token is an artifact, and having it meant that he is now a part of the True Bloods, the core members of the family. It is similar to a core disciple position in the martial arts sects. With this, he has no reason to fear his fiancée or his stepbrothers, as the family will side with him and protect him as long as he does not break their rules. Yet with it comes some troublesome responsibilities. It seems his grandmother began to like him, or maybe wants to keep a close eye on him, or a bit of both. It does not matter. Victor returned to the briefcase and continued to examine the documents one by one. They are all properties and resources allocated to him by the family. It seems his grandmother intends to test him. Well, that won't be a bad thing, he thought. In his previous life, Victor's position was not this good. After he barely survived the ceremony, the family ordered him to go to the same vain city, but not as an heir, but as a small manager in his father's company, where he had to work for a few years. It was not bad, but he could not reveal his identity and was not given much power. It was probably a part of his father's efforts to protect him from his stepbrother's schemes. Additionally, he had to go to high school as a student of a commoner. Origin, while it was not that bad, it made him very tired. And he couldn't get any resources from the family to improve his strength and position. When he fell into deep trouble later, he had very few allies in and outside of the family helping him. A sudden knock on the door brought Victor back to the preset. "Young master, it is me, may I come in?" Lily's crystal voice sounded across the closed door.